All right, let's make this ditty bag. This ditty bag is a great bag for holding your odds and ends, and it's also an awesome project for learning how to get comfortable with zippers. It's got a loop tab that you can clip a carabiner onto, so you can clip your bag onto anything. And it also just helps you zip it open and close more easily by having something to hold onto. On the inside, we've got some seam binding. This gives it a cleaner look and just a longer lifespan of a bag. All right, you've seen it, let's make it. For materials, you're going to need fabric, zipper tape, a zipper slider, some grosgrain ribbon, and some seam binding. Also some thread, I forgot to write that. And tools. You will need fabric scissors, a pencil or something to mark your fabric, a lighter, a ruler, and not pictured is your sewing machine. I have a calculator linked below that's going to tell you how to cut your fabric based on your desired length, width, and height. But your zipper is going to be the same length as one of your sides. And your grosgrain ribbon is going to go for about 5.5 inches long. That's a good dimension. So when we cut it in half, each tab will still be long enough to form a loop that a carabiner can clip onto. So what we need to do is we need to heat seal this grosgrain ribbon. That is because if we don't, it's just going to fray, and so we want a nice finish. So fold it in half, cut it in half. You can see the edges are kind of sticking up. Maybe you can't see because of the video, but one side already is heat sealed on my ribbon. I don't know what the state of yours is, but hopefully you can tell that the other side is fraying a little bit. So that's where our lighter comes into place. We're going to take our lighter, and please do this in a ventilated area or go outside to do this so you don't have to breathe in the fumes. But you're going to turn your lighter on, and I don't know if you can see the flame, but you don't have to touch the flame to the ribbon. You just have to point it there to give it heat, and you might be able to see that it's going to kind of start to melt a little bit and seal itself off. That is what we want. That is going to prevent fraying, extending the lifetime of our ditty bag and just upping the quality. Let's sew this. So you're going to take your zipper, turn it face down, and you're going to align it on the edge of your fabric. I've got a zipper foot on my machine, and this is just going to allow me to make a stitch nice and close to the zipper without sewing over the zipper, and it kind of helps keeps it in line. You don't have to use a zipper foot. If your foot is narrow enough, that's great. I mean, I'm pretty much just using a narrow foot. So yeah, don't know why I'm showing you this multiple times, but hopefully you can kind of understand what's going on. So I'm not using pins or clips since this is so small, but just lifting up my foot, getting it nice and aligned, and I'm starting to sew here. And I totally backstitched to lock it, but you don't have to because we're going to be sewing over that edge anyways. But I guess I'm just in the habit of backstitching. Okay, so I have my zipper sewn, or at least part of it sewn, and I'm going to clip my threads and get the scissors a little bit out of the way. And now I'm going to open this up, and I need to do a top stitch to secure the fabric onto the zipper so that when I open and close my bag with the zipper, the fabric is not in the way, not getting pinched by the zipper. So I do that by just kind of pulling it apart, and I just kind of finger pressed it so that I have it aligned for how I want to do my stitches. I'm going to run that through the sewing machine. Again, backstitch, you don't really need to do that. All right, now we've got my top stitch. Hopefully you can see it. That's why we've got a contrasting thread. Now open up the zipper tape, and we're going to do the exact same thing on the other side. I don't think you need to watch it in real time. Hopefully you get the idea. Okay, so that's done. Great, now that's all done. Then we're going to do our grosgrain. So we have our nicely heat sealed grosgrain pieces. We're going to fold our ditty bag in half to give us the center point. I'm going to find my marking tool. I'm going to mark the edges of the middle, if that makes sense. And I'll open it up, and I'm just going to go over that mark just a little bit just to be able to see it better. And I'm going to take my grosgrain, I'm going to fold it in half, and I'm going to line up my edge of my grosgrain with the edge of the fabric on that mark, and I'm trying my best to center it. Feel free to measure it if you'd like to be exact. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to tack it on. I'm doing just a very basic stitch because we're going to be going over this part, sewing it over again, so it doesn't need to be a super strong stitch right now because we're going to be doing that later. And now hopefully you got that idea. You're going to do the same thing on the other side. Okay, now it's time to put the zipper on the bag. This part is a little bit tricky compared to the rest of what we're doing, but I promise you got it with a little bit of practice and you'll be able to do it. So you're going to line up the edges real good. Try to get the zipper centered over the grosgrain ribbon on the other side or where you made that marking. And I'm going to take my zipper slider and I'm going to put some of the teeth of the zipper ribbon tape in, just enough to hold it, and then put the other side in. And this is, yeah, it totally might get a little tricky here. I definitely don't get it on the first try. And honestly, I don't know what to tell you other than to practice this and it will get easier. Breathe, be patient, and practice it. Yeah, you can see me trying a few times. But yay, I got it. I got it nicely. So yeah, after all that hard work, what we're gonna do since we're going to be sewing over these edges, and see we have one side that's open with the zipper, we want it to be closed. That way it just makes for easier sewing, so you don't have to hold the zipper in place while you sew it and hope that your bag stays nice. So zip it off all the way, and we're going to reattach the zipper and putting it in on the middle. And the benefit of this is giving us the closed zipper on both sides. Of course, it's optional. If you'd like to, you can sew it with an open end, but I'd say if you're going for a clean finish, then do this step. So this step does get a little trickier because if it's misaligned, then you get a bulge. I'd say if it's misaligned enough that you can tell that it's a little bit crooked, that you should start over by just zipping the zipper backwards and starting over. But if you can't tell, then it's either close enough or it's aligned. So I've got my zipper back in and I'm taking care to not zip it out of the bag. I just want to land it nicely in the middle. Cool. So now I have that. I'm going to carefully turn my bag inside out in double speed. Okay. Now we're going to line that up with the center. The center of the back. Where we put the grosgrain ribbon, and we're just gonna press it with our hand nice and firmly to get it in place so that we have it where we want to sew it. Then I'm going to sew. I'm using a 1/2 inch seam allowance, so go ahead and do a straight stitch. And I'm going to sew over the zipper, and once I hit the zipper, I'm going to sew over it a couple of times just to get it nice and strong. I think I have some thread in the way here or something that I needed to get out of the way. So back stitch over the zipper and go forward a couple times. And then clip your threads and do the exact same thing on the other side. Awesome. We've done that. Now what we want to do is we want to add some seam binding to give our clean finish that we've been talking about this whole time. Oh yeah, and see, this is nice because now your zipper's closed. It's fine to go ahead and open up your zipper now because it's still gonna keep it closed because you stitched over that section. I hope what I'm saying is making sense. If it doesn't make any sense, please feel free to let me know and ask any questions and I will do my best to clarify. All right, back to the seam tape. We're going to be covering over these edges with our seam tape. You can see that my seam tape is a little frayed up top, and see, okay, so here, what I'm showing you, you don't need to do all of these things. So I'm like folding it over to hide that frayed edge on the ends. You actually don't need to do that for this step, and the reason is because we're going to be cutting over that edge that I folded over so nicely anyways, and covering it with seam tape later down the line. So it's simpler to just take your seam binding and fold it over, raw edges and all. Sorry. Yep, I'm gonna watch for some extra time as I do this unnecessary step, totally unnecessary. But this will give you a picture for what we'll do later, because when I film that part later, I'm sorry, but I didn't show you a very good job in the camera. You'll see. But hopefully you can understand what I'm saying by the raw edges and the foldovers and all that stuff. So I'm going to sew over this back stitch. Again, unnecessary, but good practice either way. Clip my threads, do the same exact thing on the other side, except when I'm filming it this time, I realized I didn't need to do the clean edge. So I'm just doing the raw edge, and my machine gets jammed here. So there's a little bit of missing footage where I'm cleaning out my machine and then finishing the stitch. Here we go. We're back. We have the seam binding over both. Now this is the fun part where we turn this into a 3D bag. So what you're going to do is you're going to kind of pull out the edges here. And what you want is for that stitch that you did on the edge to be 45 degrees with the folded edge of the fabric right here. You can get a protractor or a ruler if you want, but you don't really need to because, well, I guess we already have a ruler. Ignore what I said about the protractor, but grab out your ruler. And if you have my blueprint, there's a measurement called Q, and that is what we are marking here based on your dimensions. So Q is basically the height of your bag divided by 2. And you're going to align this 90 degrees, and we're just drawing a square to the dimension of Q on all 4 sides. And you can do this on the back too. I guess I'm just showing you 2 sides, but yeah, so you do it on the back. And hopefully you can see my markings. And then that's going to make it easier, so when you pull it out now, you know if you're at 45 degrees or not. Because if you are, if you have it nice and lined up, then your lines, your corners of the squares are going to be just at the folded edge of your bag. And your lines would be continuous if this flap of fabric was not in the way. So if you can kind of try to see past that. And this is going to be the line that you stitch over. And when you fold it also, when you pull it out on the back, you can see the lines connecting. So we're going to stitch over that, and we're going to do it on all 4. And our bag is basically 3D-ified. So now is just time for a little bit of cleanup work. But before we do that, I guess I'm going to prove to you that it's 3D-ified by turning it inside out or something. I don't remember what I'm talking about in this video. I mean, in the filming. This is a voiceover if you can't tell. But blah, 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 something. Yeah, press your 3D bag. And yeah, now I'm finally going to turn it out, I promise. So I opened up the zipper and I turned it inside out. And you can see, hey, look, we got a nice 3D ditty bag. It zips, it closed. It looks complete. It can be complete if you want. If you want to stop here, you're done. Great job, you made it. If you want to do the next step of clipping the edges and finishing them, feel free to join me in that. So I'm cutting the edges, so I have about a ½ inch left on each side. And then I'm going to take my seam binding and cover it and fold it. So do you remember if I did that earlier step where I folded the raw edges of the seam binding to hide them? and then I said I didn't need to do that. Here is where I am going to need to do that. And I don't know if you're going to be able to see, but hopefully you're able to see from earlier. So I fold each side, and then fold it in half over the top. And I'm going to sew that. And I will say that this step is a little bit tricky because sometimes you think you've sewn over it and then you really missed it. Yeah, I guess that's another thing that's just going to take practice. It's hard to maneuver these small things, and clipping and pinning can definitely help. So basically, this is the last step. You're going to do this on all 4 sides. And do your best to clean up your threads better than I've done here. And then turn it inside out. And you are done. You have your ditty bag. Great job, you made it. I really hope that this made sense. Please let me know if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or feedback. I'm super happy to hear it. And great job. I think that's all.